What's going on? It's the RapNerd, and I'm here today to rank all of Isaiah Rashad's albums. Now, I know I said I was going to do a further breakdown of his most recent album, It's Been Awful, but after I've listened to it more and listened to some interviews, I feel like my initial reaction and breakdown was pretty spot on, and I don't really have much to add to that. So I figured, since I did one for Cole, this is something I want to start doing for the rappers that I really enjoy once they release an album, is ranking the projects that I have listened to. And I'm saying have listened to because Zay does have a tape that he released when he first was starting called Welcome to the Game. I never listened to that in totality because it sounds a lot different than his more polished projects like the four I'm about to get into. So I had to put that out there just for folks wondering why I didn't include that album. So as I mentioned, I'm going to do all of his four projects, his major projects that he released. And this is just my list of my favorites. This is not a best list. I gotta say that because I had comments on my J. Cole ranking telling me I'm wrong. And I'm like, dog, I can't be wrong with what I think is my favorite. This is not about the best. Again, this is my favorite list ranking, all right? So I wanna get that clear, and I'm all ears for your list down below. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get it popping. So at the number 4 spot for me in Isaiah Rashad's album and discography is It's Been Awful. Now, some people might be like, it's recency bias, you just heard it and you gotta vibe with it more. And no, I'm pretty sure that this is at the 4 spot for me, and I'll probably stay there just because what I like most from Zay is not heavy in this album. This album is definitely a vibe, and I love that it's his most personal project. You know, I feel like all MCs get to a point that they give us their personal project, like how Jay gave 444, or like how Kendrick gave Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. Cole gave us Forest Hill Drives, and I would even consider The Fall Off to be one of those very personal records. And again, this is Zay's version of that. And he kind of swaps out the personal introspection for his more skilled level of rapping. And not to say that that's not on here, but again, a lot of this album is very experimental with not only the music, but his delivery. Like, there are a lot of verses where he's kind of just mumbling his words and using flangers to make the vocals sound a bit different than normal. And I feel like it's there to push the perception of his struggling addiction, which I do like, and all the things that he's gone through. I feel like it ties in thematically with what he was trying to portray in this album. And there are a lot more melodies and the distortion of vocals than what I'm used to with Zay. And I do like it, don't get me wrong. But the tracks that I like the most, or I can say the track that I like the most, is the last record. I think it's 517 Freestyle. If I got that wrong, excuse me, but it's a freestyle, that last record where he is just going off rapping. That's the Zay that I enjoy the most, and I feel like he can still get in that bag moving forward, getting personally, because I know he's grown, and I don't want to take that away from him because I'm still vibing to the album, and I still love it. Like, none of these records I don't like at all. They all get bump in my ride and at home, and this one will do that as well. I found myself listening to this at night more, kind of when I'm winding down, because the content is so personal and taps into a certain side of myself. But I just think overall, as an album, it would be my least favorite. So, like I said, at the number 4 spot for me is It's Been Awful. At the number 3 spot for me is The House Is Burning, and I really love this album when it dropped because this is Zay's most turned up album, I would say. I think that this leans on bangers more than any of his other projects. We all know Zay is really vibey when it comes to his music, and his other projects tend to lean into more soulful, melodic type things. But here, the first 5 tracks on here are all bangers. And then the album consists of like 3 or 4 more upbeat bangers that I'm glad that he chose to like include and make an album like this, because this is the project I listen to when I work out, and it gives me a lot of energy in the right places. I mean, having the intro Dark Side, that kind of sets you up like it's gonna be smooth, and then we jump straight into From the Garden. That is a track with very high energy, sets the tone for the album overall. Because even a song like R.I.P. Young is a lot more chill, but it still has those trap drums behind it that deliver a higher level of energy. And even through all of the high energy tracks, he still delivers one of the best records in his entire discography with Headshots. That is like a vibe record. I remember when he was teasing music in the new album, that was kind of the one that a lot of people heard as a snippet, and a lot of folks latched onto that, including me. I was like, ooh, I love this hook. Until you caught me by surprise in my brand new whip. The melody on that and the beat are just like a marriage made in heaven. But overall, like I said, this is an album that is made to bump loud, and I love it for that. So at the number 3 spot for me is The House is Burning. So at the number 2 spot for me is The Sun's Tirade. And before I move forward, I want to say that I think that this album is Zay's best project. I think that it's rapped the best. I think that it has the best overall sound and context because it is his most boom bap album, that he manages to still keep it like very southern but still boom bapish. Hell, he even says it in a line, I think on Brenda, when he goes, mix that boosie with that boom bap, you rap, and he's fully aware of what he's doing and where he honed his whole style to that point. The beats on here are just phenomenal. Like the best beat in my opinion is that Titty and a Dollar, that soulful horn playing, and when that beat switches up and changes, when he gets to that part, gotta get rid of my kitties, my nigga, gotta get rid of my liver, my nigga, and it's that whistle, that I'm getting goosebumps because of that track. It's so damn raw. Oh my god. Of course, J-Rock delivers that verse that's ill. He has that, and then he has another record with Kendrick called What's Going Wrong, I think, and Kendrick delivers a fire verse over this soulful beat, and Isaiah came to play with that verse as well, with that rapid fire flow going back and forth. It's just so damn good from a lyrical standpoint. And I love that this album was the beginning of how he likes to break tracks in two, where he'll start with one sound and the second half of the song just is something completely different. Like when you get to track 4, Rope and Rose Gold, where the first half is him talking about pretty much suicide in a sense, but then the second half is talking about getting to, you know, rose gold, having using the chain as something to be proud about. And the swap in sounds are ridiculously different. How the first one kind of is more groovy, and then when it switches over, it's straight up boom bap style. And Stuck in the Mud does the same exact thing. But he still has tracks that bump, like Park, which kind of to me feels like an extension of something that he would do on the Sylvia demo. And A Lot is also a really banging track too, produced by Mike Will. So he has a few joints on there to up the pace, but for the most part, this is just soulful southern boom bap at its finest. Like this reminds me of like a 90s Outkast album brought to modern day times. And when this album released, I was playing the hell out of this project back and forth. I never forget, because I think this released in 2017. Let me look. 2016, okay. And by this time, I had moved back to Atlanta from living in Jersey. So hearing this album just really filled my spirit with being back in the South, and everything about this album is the way that I see any metropolitan in the South. So like I said, I think that this is Zay's best album, but at the number 2 spot for me is Sun's Tirade. So at the number 1 spot for me is the Sylvia demo. And it's funny because the order of all of these albums is pretty much within release date, but this project right here, oh my goodness, man. I absolutely love this album, and there's a bit of nostalgia for me when it comes to this record because I stumbled across this project when I first moved to Atlanta. So this is 2014, and I always associate this project with that first year I lived in ATL, because I was kind of even finding myself as a person, and I started to come across like black hipster culture, and Isaiah Rashad like was like the perfect type of rapper to like fit that mold, because I feel like that's kind of what he is for me. And I don't say it disrespectfully. People may hear hipster and be like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it is what it is. Like hipster culture was on like a heavy thing in the early 2010s and late 2000s, right? So with that, you have rappers integrating into that culture. Like the New Boys was some of the people who are associated with that. Wiz Khalifa, Mac Miller, Mick Jenkins even fits in that category of like hipster rap in a sense. And when I heard Zay, I was like, yo, this guy is something else. And it's because of this album I will never forget. Back then I had cable still, so a lot of times me and my wife at night would just put it on like MTV videos, and you know they have like different genres. Like they have MTV Pop Hits, MTV Jams, which is the hip hop shit, MTV Bilingual, all that stuff. And we used to just, you know, go back and forth watching music videos and drinking. And this was, you know, pre-kids, so we were listening to mad music. And I'll never forget seeing the video for I Shot You Down. And And I remember hearing that. I was like, who the fuck is this? Like, I'm listening, like his verse on that shit, man. And he's just flowing and he's like, I ain't these other niggas, cause these niggas is fake. They don't pop a shot, these niggas is pop a dot. Fine with the shine, beat me up in a rhyme spot. No crying till I'm in a pine box. Dog, when I heard that, I was like, yo, who is this dude? And that sent me on a rabbit hole, and that's when I found this project, and I was bumping this shit all year. Easily, like this like blew me away so much so that, you know, but around the time, like I said, I was rapping myself, and that even got into the DNA of like music that I was making at the time because I found it so good. Because back then you could tell, I think Zay was fresh and hungry, and not to say that he's lost that now, but there's a certain level of ferocious and viciousness he had when he rapped these verses back then that just felt like, this is my shot and I'm taking it. Like, he put so much into his verses lyrically and just delivering them that it struck me as soon as I heard them. And then to add even more to that, right? That same year, my wife and I went to this festival / concert called One Music Fest. Now it's a huge thing. I mean, now they do a weekend for 3 days, but back then it was only for one day on a Saturday, and we just bought tickets. And Isaiah Rashad was there, and he performed most of the records off the Sylvia demo. So I'm putting out there now that a lot of this album is my favorite because of the nostalgia I have with it in the year that I had that year, you know, being able to live in Atlanta, experience the city for what it was, and it was like the soundtrack of a lot of my time there, and then seeing him in person. I even have a picture with Isaiah Rashad. I'm gonna put it up here so you can see. He came down, was, you know, walking through the crowd, and I snatched the picture of. You know, I was starstruck. You know, I saw him walking, and my wife had to be like, go get a picture. Everybody else getting pictures, you go get one. And I'm just there like, is this really Isaiah Rashad? And lo and behold, he snapped it up, and I was like, yo, your music is fire. Like, I listen to it daily, and artist to artist, man, like, you got it. I remember telling him this, right? And that's a moment that I'll always remember. And as a matter of fact, Kendrick was also there because he performed on the big stage. So again, just a highlight that I'm never gonna forget, and because of that alone, it's gonna be my favorite Zay project. But it's not all nostalgia though, because there are some good ass records on here. You know, opening with Hereditary with this like floaty, very atmospheric, you know, instrumentation with no type of kick, and he's just harmonizing. I am tripping on my run, I've been sipping on that Henny. You've been dealing with the wrong one. I thought it was fire, and it's just so hypnotizing to hear that. And then it rolls right into Webby Flow, which is like ultra boom bap. That the intro was so long, you're getting into it, but when that beat drops, you can't help but nod your head until it breaks. I done grown up for my child's sake. Black and mild face, clicking blouse space. Wordsmithing like that does not go over my head at all. And I've said it mad times on my channel that I am a very big fan of rhyme schemes and technical skill. And that's what I feel like this album really shows what Zay can do from that standpoint. And I love the line when he goes, on my tablet, scribble on my rap and I'm cool. Inspired all my local jokers that be quitting at school. They was quitting their job, I was hating mine too. I was flipping your burger high as a bitch, but I'm cool. Like, just the relatability to that stuck with me quite a bit. You know what I mean? Like, lines like that just speak to the everyday person that wants to be more, but they just can't because they're still working towards that. And then the next record, Sylvia Demo, is one that's just as boom bap. Again, more relatable shit, man. I slide in my rimless Bentley. No types, I'm Jimmy bending blocks, my world a Lego. Like, what? Hella bars. And then after that, you get to R.I.P. Kevin Miller, which is a record that I heard riding around randomly before I knew who he was. And I was listening to it, and I was like, who is this, yo? And I love that hook. Y'all live for bitches and blunts. We live for weed and money. And that you have them hard trap drums with that piano sample over top that just feels gritty as hell. I was riding around at nighttime, and it just was a vibe completely, man. And of course, there are a lot of smooth joints on here after that, like when you get to both joints with SZA, West Savannah, and, you know, Ronnie Drake, Tranquility, Menthol, Heavenly Father, all smooth joints. And then there's this record on there called Brad Jordan that remind me of some old school player stuff, like something you would hear Scarface rap over, or even UGK, which is, to me, a foundation in what Zay's music is overall. That's in there. And another record that really caught me off guard was this joint called Soliloquy where he's just rapping, going crazy. He goes, Mac in the scatter rapping, no passing my blunt. Don't you put me on freshman covers, I'm posing with lunch. Thinking they worthy, I'm presently passing them up. No competing with bleachers jogging, I'm running amok. Ponzi scheme, selling everybody dreams. Killer like your neighbor, I'm as nice as everybody seems. We just breaking bad, and my brother serving Walter White. Hoping he ain't caught with that possession like a poltergeist. So I say all that to say that the Sylvia demo is my favorite for all of those reasons. I think like this project again is his hungriest, and I feel like it's his most rapidy rap that he's been in all of these projects to me. I feel like as he's gone on, he's gotten more melodic because he's had more time to sit down and craft and experiment. But here, it's just raw raps from a like very high level. And I don't even know if people know Zay like raps like that good. And y'all know me on this channel. Technical skill is my shit, so it is what it is. So that is my ranking of all of Isaiah Rashad's albums. Let me know in the comments, what are your favorite? And again, this is just my favorite. I'm not saying the best. Remember that, please. Don't ridicule me or call me names for it, you know what I mean? But I'm all for discussion. And of course, if you like this kind of content, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you already are subscribed, thank you. And until next time, peace. RapNerd Productions, no capping, that's word to mommy. Instead of banking on it, now rapping is just a hobby.